Hey everyone, welcome back. If you caught our last update about DOGE and Social Security, then you already know things were heating up. And if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome in. You're not too late, because what's happening right now could affect millions of people, especially those who rely on Social Security or care about keeping their personal information private. Now here's the big update. The Trump administration has officially asked the Supreme Court to let Elon Musk's agency, yes, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, access the Social Security Administration's most sensitive data systems. That's right, they're taking this all the way to the highest court in the country. So if you thought this story was over after the appeals court ruling, it's not. In fact, it might be entering the most important chapter yet. Let's talk about why this matters, what's already happened, and what the next decision could mean for you and your family. And before we go any further, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you feel like DOGE should be allowed to access Social Security data to fight fraud? Or do you think the risks to privacy are just too high? Let me know in the comments. Your voice matters, and I always read what you share. And if you find this helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future updates. There's a lot more coming as this case develops. Now, let's rewind for just a moment so everyone's on the same page. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, was created during President Trump's second term as part of a sweeping plan to cut waste and bring in fresh, tech-driven reforms across federal agencies. Elon Musk was put in charge, and his approach was pretty straightforward: disrupt everything, replace slow systems, automate processes, and challenge long-standing government routines. And at first, that idea got a lot of support. After all, who doesn't want government to be more efficient? But then came the Social Security data request. DOGE asked for what many consider one of the most sensitive databases in the federal system. Millions of records that include names, addresses, medical histories, disability claims, income statements, even direct deposit and tax info. All of it all at once. They said it was to crack down on fraud, to run anti-fraud programs like Are You Alive?, which aim to stop benefits from going to people who had already passed away, and to clean up errors in deposit reports. But critics quickly raised concerns. The issue wasn't just what DOGE wanted. It was how they tried to get it. You see, they didn't go through Congress. They didn't hold public hearings. Instead, they issued what amounted to an internal administrative order giving themselves access. And here's where things really took a turn. Reports started coming out that DOGE staff were already in the system, without full background checks, without the standard privacy training that Social Security employees are required to complete. Some insiders said DOGE had already pulled certain data without clear oversight. So, in February, labor unions and privacy groups filed a lawsuit, saying this was a huge overreach and a violation of the Privacy Act. Then, in April, a federal judge named Elon stepped in and issued a ruling that changed everything. She blocked DOGE from accessing the SSA's internal systems, called their approach a fishing expedition, and said there was no strong enough justification to bypass long-standing privacy protections. Her ruling also ordered DOGE to delete any unapproved data they had already accessed and prohibited them from making any changes to Social Security's internal software. That decision was a huge win for privacy advocates, but it wasn't the end of the story. Next, DOGE appealed. The case went to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and after a tight vote, 9 judges in favor, 6 against, the court upheld Judge Hollander's decision. The majority agreed that the privacy risk was too high, especially given the scale of the request and the lack of transparency. One of the key voices was Judge Robert King. He emphasized that Americans have been handing this information over since the Social Security Act began in 1935. And there's always been a basic understanding that this information stays protected, that it doesn't get shared without a really good reason. So then, fast forward to today, President Trump's team has now filed an emergency appeal with the Supreme Court. Their argument is that the lower courts are blocking important anti-fraud work, that DOGE is being prevented from carrying out its mission, and that every day this ruling stands, taxpayers are being hurt by fraud and inefficiency. The administration's lawyer, Solicitor General John Sauer, said the court's decision is causing ongoing, irreparable harm. He's asking the Supreme Court to immediately lift the restrictions and give DOGE full access again. Now, Chief Justice John Roberts has responded. He's asked the other side, made up of labor unions, retirees, and civil liberties groups, to submit their arguments by May 12th. That tells us this case is being taken seriously, and we could be looking at a full hearing before all 9 justices. And if that happens, it's going to be one of the most important cases on digital privacy and government power in recent memory. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about DOGE anymore. If the court allows this kind of access, it could open the floodgates for other agencies to do the same. Not just for Social Security, but for tax records, immigration databases, student loan data, you name it. And the real question becomes, what kind of government do we want? One that moves fast and cuts corners in the name of efficiency? Or one that protects your data, even if that means moving a little slower? It's a difficult balance, and people are going to land on different sides. But it's worth talking about. Now, let's also remember, DOGE in its current form isn't some legacy agency. And while it's done some interesting work, it's also faced criticism for moving too fast, not following procedure, and putting people in sensitive positions without proper clearance. Some of the court documents even showed that DOGE used contractors who weren't fully vetted. Others reported that system changes were being made without the knowledge of key SSA staff. That's a problem, especially when you're dealing with information that could impact someone's healthcare, finances, or eligibility for benefits. And also, Judge Hollander made a point in her ruling that I think we should all reflect on. She said, just because an agency wants to solve a problem doesn't mean it can do so however it wants. The law still applies. Privacy still matters, and process still matters. Some of DOGE's defenders say, well, they already have access to data from other departments like Treasury or Education. But the Social Security Administration isn't just another data source. It holds decades of deeply personal information, the kind of details that, if mishandled, could put someone at real risk of identity theft, financial hardship, or worse. And if you're receiving Social Security right now, here's what you need to know. Your data is still protected. DOGE doesn't currently have access to it. The SSA is still operating as usual. Your benefits aren't delayed. Your checks haven't changed. And this court battle hasn't affected your payments. But depending on what the Supreme Court decides, that could change. That's why it's important to keep paying attention, not just to what's happening in Congress or the White House, but to what's happening in the courts. Because this is where a lot of real decisions are being made. So then, what does this mean for the future? Well, as more of our lives go digital, governments will keep asking for more access to data, to software, to records. And there will always be a push to do things faster, cheaper, and smarter. But that doesn't mean we have to give up control. It doesn't mean we stop asking questions. Like, who's watching the watchers? Who gets to decide what's efficient and what's excessive? And who's protecting your rights when things move too fast? Those are the kinds of questions this case raises. And I'm glad we're here to talk about them. So let's keep the conversation going. Leave a comment with your thoughts, especially if you've been following this from the start. Do you feel better knowing the courts blocked DOGE? Or do you think the Supreme Court should let them back in? And if you're new here, or if you just haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. We'll be keeping a close watch on what happens next. And I'll be right here to break it down, just like we always do. Thanks for spending your time with me today. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.